Ambassador David Reynolds had been Earth's voice in the Galactic Council for 3 years. Every morning, he woke up in his quarters on Apex Prime Station, put on his formal Earth diplomatic robes, and went to work trying to convince the galaxy that humanity deserved a seat at the table. It wasn't easy. Most species in the Council had been exploring space for thousands of years, some for tens of thousands. Earth had barely managed faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. To the older civilizations, humans were children playing at politics. But Reynolds never got angry, never raised his voice. He believed that patience and reason could win over anyone eventually. His assistant, Brian Wells, used a joke that Reynolds could negotiate peace between a cat and a mouse. That Tuesday started like any other council session. Representatives from 40 different species gathered in the massive chamber, a circular room with seats arranged in tiers. Each species had their designated spot, marked with their world symbol. Earth's symbol was simple compared to others, just a blue circle representing their home planet. Reynolds sat in Earth's chair, reviewing his notes. Today's agenda included a complaint from the Crovalian Empire. They claimed that a human colony ship had violated their territorial boundaries by settling a planet in what they called Crovalian expansion space. The claim was nonsense. Reynolds had spent weeks reviewing the data. The planet was an unclaimed space, far outside any recognized Crovalian territory. The colony ship had followed every protocol, checked every registry, and filed all the proper documentation. High Commander Thrakis represented the Crovalian Empire. He was massive even by Crovalian standards, nearly 8 feet tall with thick scale skin that looked like armor plating. His people were warriors, proud of their military strength and their empire that spanned 20 systems. Thrakis stood when it was his turn to speak. His voice boomed through the chamber's translation system. The primitive humans have violated sacred Crovalian territory. This is an insult that cannot stand. We demand they abandon their illegal colony immediately and pay tribute for this offense. Reynolds waited patiently for his turn to respond. When the mediator called on him, he stood and activated the holographic display. Star charts appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the disputed region. Honored council members, Reynolds began in his calm, measured tone. The planet in question, which our colonists have named New Hope, lies in Sector 447b. As you can see from these official galactic registry records, this sector has been classified as unclaimed for the past 70 years. He pulled up more data. The Crovalian Empire's nearest territorial claim is here, more than 15 light years away. Our colony followed every established protocol. We filed our intent to settle, waited the required 90-day objection period during which no objections were raised, and proceeded legally. Thrakis' scales seemed to darken with rage. You dare question Crovalian claims? Your species has been in space for mere moments. We have ruled these regions for millennia. With respect, High Commander, desire to expand does not equal legal claim. Reynolds said gently. The Council established these protocols for a reason, to prevent exactly this kind of conflict. Earth has followed those rules to the letter. Several other Council members nodded. The evidence was clear. Some species didn't like humans much, but the law was the law. Thrakis moved down from his seat. The chamber went quiet. This wasn't normal procedure. Representatives were supposed to stay in their designated areas during formal sessions. Brian, sitting behind Reynolds, leaned forward. Sir, something's wrong. Reynolds noticed it too. Thrakis was walking toward the center of the chamber, toward Earth's position. His hand was moving to his belt, where Crovalian officers traditionally carried ceremonial weapons. But those weapons weren't just ceremonial. They were fully functional plasma sidearms. High Commander, the Council mediator called out. Please return to your seat. This is a violation of chamber protocols. Thrakis ignored him. He pulled the weapon free and pointed it directly at Reynolds. You call me a liar, Thrakis said, his voice low and dangerous. You insult Crovalian honor in front of the entire galaxy. Reynolds raised his hand slowly, showing he was unarmed. I'm simply presenting facts, Commander. There's no insult intended. Let's sit down and discuss this calmly. Crovalians do not discuss with insects. The weapon fired. The plasma bolt hit Reynolds in the chest before anyone could react. He fell backward, eyes wide with shock. Brian screamed and rushed forward, but it was too late. The ambassador was dead before he hit the floor. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives shouted in outrage. Others sat frozen in disbelief. In 50,000 years of Galactic Council history, no one had ever murdered a diplomatic representative in the chamber itself. Thrakis holstered his weapon calmly and walked back to his seat. Justice for Crovalian honor, he announced to the chamber. Let this be a lesson to all primitive species who dare question their betters. The council mediator was stammering, trying to restore order. Security forces were running toward the chamber. Brian knelt beside Reynolds' body, hands shaking, not sure what to do. The entire incident had been broadcast live across the galaxy. Billions of beings on thousands of worlds had just watched the Crovalian commander execute Earth's ambassador in cold blood. Back on Earth, alarms started going off in the High Command Center. General Owen Cross watched the footage replay 3 times, his face turning to stone. "Get me Admiral Harper," he said quietly, "and activate the Third Fleet. All of it." His aide hesitated. "Sir, what are our orders?" Cross looked at Reynolds' body on the screen, at Brian crying over his friend, at Thrakis sitting calmly in his seat like nothing had happened. "Tell the Admiral to prepare for war," Cross said, "and get every human out of Crovalian space. Now." The galaxy expected protests, diplomatic outrage, strongly worded letters. They didn't understand humans yet. They were about to learn. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 48 hours after Reynolds' murder. Every species sent their top representatives. The chamber was packed with delegates, all talking in worried whispers about what Earth might do. The Crovalian delegation arrived first, led by High Commander Thrakis himself. He walked in like he owned the place, showing no remorse, no concern. To him, the matter was settled. He defended Crovalian honor. End of story. The other species weren't so sure. The Volturians, an ancient race that had seen countless wars, sent a private message to the council leadership suggesting they prepare security measures. The Hendari, known for their diplomatic skills, tried to organize a mediation committee before Earth's representative arrived. But Earth's response to all communication was the same: silence. Every message sent to Earth's diplomatic corps went unanswered. Calls to their embassy stations got automated responses. It was like humanity had just vanished from galactic politics overnight. What the council didn't know was that Earth was very busy. In human space, every single citizen in Crovalian territory received the same message. It came directly from Earth's High Command, marked with the highest priority code. All human personnel are ordered to evacuate Crovalian space immediately. No exceptions. Use any available transport. Do not wait. Do not gather belongings. Leave now. Trade stations emptied within hours. Diplomatic staff abandoned their posts. Scientists working on joint research projects packed their essentials and left. Even human tourists on Crovalian resort worlds booked the first flights out. The Crovalians watched this mass exodus with amusement. They saw it as cowardice, proof that humans knew their place. They had no idea what was actually happening. Admiral Nicole Harper stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance, watching her fleet assemble. She'd been recalled from a deep space exploration mission and given new orders that made her blood run cold. Make them pay, General Cross had told her. Reynolds was a good man. He deserved better than this. Harper had met Reynolds once at a military ceremony. He'd been kind, asked about her crew, seemed genuinely interested in their work. Now he was dead, murdered on live broadcast with crime of being right. Her fleet grew by the hour. 200 warships, ranging from massive carriers to fast attack cruisers. Every captain who received their orders came immediately. No questions asked. They all knew what this was about. Captain Troy Mitchell commanded the destroyer Vengeance. He'd served in the military for 20 years and never thought he'd see a real war. Admiral, he transmitted. All systems ready. Awaiting orders. Hold position, Harper responded. We wait. For what, ma'am? For them to realize they made a mistake. Back at the Galactic Council, Earth's new representative finally arrived. General Owen Cross walked into the chamber, wearing his full military dress uniform, medals gleaming on his chest. Not diplomatic robes, not civilian clothes, a military uniform. The message was clear, but most species missed it. Cross didn't take Earth's usual seat. Instead, he walked to the center of the chamber, right where Reynolds had died. Someone had cleaned the floor, but Cross knew exactly where his predecessor had fallen. He pulled out a small device and activated it. Every screen in the chamber lit up with the same footage. Reynolds' execution, the plasma bolt, the ambassador falling, Thrakis holstering his weapon. Cross let it play. Once, twice, 3 times. The chamber fell completely silent. Some delegates looked away. Others stared in horror at Thrakis, who sat stone-faced in his seat. Finally, Cross spoke. His voice was quiet, but carried through the entire chamber. Ambassador David Reynolds was a patient man, a kind man. He believed in peace, in diplomacy, in finding common ground. Cross looked directly at Thrakis. He was the only thing standing between you and us. Then Cross turned and walked out. That was it. No demand for justice. No calls for sanctions. No diplomatic protests. Just that one sentence and silence. The council erupted in confusion. The mediator tried to call Cross back, but he was gone. The Hendari delegation tried to contact Earth for clarification. Nothing. Thrakis laughed. The humans show their weakness. They send a soldier who speaks in riddles and runs away. This proves Crovalian superiority. But the Valtorian ambassador, who'd lived through 3 major galactic wars, didn't laugh. She'd seen that look in Cross's eyes. She'd heard that tone of voice. She knew what it meant. "You're a fool," she told Thrakis. That wasn't weakness. That was a warning. Meanwhile, humanity mobilized like never before. Every shipyard went to full production. Military reserves were activated across all colonies. Even civilian vessels started receiving upgrades, weapons, shields, faster engines. Brian Wells, Reynolds' former assistant, signed up for military service the day after the funeral. The recruiter tried to talk him out of it, said he was more valuable in diplomatic support. Brian shook his head. Reynolds believed in peace. I did too, but they killed him for it. His hands clenched into fists. I'm done talking. He wasn't alone. Recruitment centers across human space had lines around the block. Young and old, experienced and fresh, all volunteering. All wanting to be part of what came next. The Crovalian Empire, confident in their military might, decided to make another statement. They sent a battle group to human space. 50 heavy cruisers, enough firepower to conquer a small system. Their commander broadcast a message on all frequencies. Humans, your cowardice disgusts us. Surrender your illegal colony and pay tribute, or face the might of the Crovalian Empire. The human response came not in words, but in action. Ships appeared on Crovalian sensors. Hundreds of them. But these weren't pristine military vessels. They were cargo haulers with weapons bolted to their hulls. Mining ships carrying missile pods. Colony transports with jury-rigged shields. An entire fleet of civilians who'd armed themselves and come to fight. The Crovalian commander stared at his screens in confusion. This wasn't how wars were supposed to start. Where was the formal declaration? The organized military response? Then the human ships transmitted something. The footage of Reynolds' execution and a simple countdown timer. 10 seconds. The Crovalian commander finally understood. This wasn't going to be a war. It was going to be an annihilation. The countdown hit 0. Every human ship opened fire at once. The space around Crovalian battle group lit up like a supernova. Missiles, railgun rounds, laser batteries. Everything humanity had brought turned the void into a killing field. The Crovalian commander tried to coordinate a response, but there was no pattern to predict. The human ships weren't following any known tactical doctrine. Some charged straight in. Others flanked. A few hung back, providing covering fire. It was chaos, but it was effective chaos. Captain Troy Mitchell piloted the Vengeance through the battle with a cold fury he'd never felt before. Every time he lined up a shot, he saw Reynolds falling. Every time he fired, he whispered the ambassador's name. The battle lasted 4 minutes. When it ended, 50 Crovalian cruisers were debris. Not one had survived. Not one had been given a chance to surrender. Admiral Harper's face appeared on every human ship screen. Good work. Now comes the hard part. We're going to Crovalian space, and we're going to dismantle their military piece by piece. But listen carefully. Civilians are off limits. We're not them. We don't murder the innocent. Anyone who fires on noncombatants answers to me personally. Understood? A chorus of acknowledgments came back. The fleet turned toward Crovalian space. The Crovalian Empire controlled 70 star systems. Harper had a list of every military installation, every shipyard, every weapons platform in all of them. She started at the outer rim and worked inward. The first system was Croval 7, a minor colony with a small military garrison and shipyard. The human fleet jumped in without warning. Klaxons blared across the Crovalian base. Lieutenant Casey Morgan commanded the frigate Relentless. She'd never fired on an enemy before, never even seen combat. Now she was targeting a space station where people worked and lived. Frigate Relentless to Croval 7 station, she transmitted. Evacuate all personnel immediately. You have 10 minutes. The Crovalian commander responded with threats and demands. Casey cut him off. 9 minutes. 50 seconds. Your call. Civilian workers started fleeing the station in escape pods. The military personnel stayed, trying to power up weapons. When the timer ended, Casey gave the order. Her ship's main guns turned the station into scrap metal. But before leaving the system, Harper broadcast a message on all frequencies. It played in Crovalian language, translated perfectly. Your leaders killed our peacemaker. Your high commander murdered an unarmed diplomat in cold blood. This is what happens when you cross that line. Any civilian who wants to leave Crovalian space will be escorted safely to neutral territory. Stay, and you risk being caught in what comes next. The message included footage of Reynolds' execution. Again and again, system by system, the pattern repeated. Human ships would arrive, give civilians time to evacuate, then systematically destroy every military asset. Shipyards became debris fields. Weapons platforms exploded. Communication arrays went dark. The Crovalian military tried to mount defenses, but they couldn't predict where the humans would strike next. Harper didn't follow any logical progression. Sometimes she hit important systems, sometimes minor outposts. She kept them guessing, kept them off balance. Captain Randy Foster commanded a small task force assigned to Croval 12, a heavily fortified system. His orders were different than the others. Don't destroy, just blockade. Why aren't we attacking? His tactical officer asked. Because there are 3 million civilians here, Foster explained. We're not letting military ships out, but we're letting civilians leave. Watch. Over the next week, thousands of civilian transports fled the system. The Crovalian military tried to stop them, calling them cowards and traitors. Foster's ships destroyed any military vessel that pursued the refugees. You're protecting enemy civilians? His officer asked, confused. We're protecting civilians, Foster corrected. They didn't kill Reynolds. Thrakis did. The military did. They're the ones who pay. Word spread across Crovalian space. Humans were destroying military targets, but letting civilians go. Millions began fleeing toward neutral systems. The Crovalian government ordered them to stay, threatening punishment for desertion. Harper's response was to broadcast safe passage routes. Follow these coordinates. No human ship will fire on civilian vessels. You have our word. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence as the exodus grew. This wasn't traditional war. This was something else entirely. The humans were methodically dismantling an empire by giving its people a choice. Leave or watch everything burn. 3 weeks into the campaign, Harper's fleet reached Croval Prime's outer territories. This was the heart of the empire, where their best defenses waited. The Crovalian military had assembled a massive fleet, determined to stop the human advance. Admiral Harper sat in her command chair, studying the enemy positions. Her executive officer, Commander Julie Reed looked worried. "Ma'am, they outnumber us 3-1. If we engage, casualties will be heavy." Harper nodded. "Transmit a message to all Corvallian ships. Military frequency only." The message was simple. Footage of Reynolds' death. Then Harper's voice. "You could have apologized. You could have held Thrakus accountable. Instead, you defended him, protected him, called his murder justice. So here's our justice. Surrender now, or join him in history as a cautionary tale about what happens when you kill Earth's diplomats." The Corvallian fleet commander's response was defiant. They would never surrender to primitives. Harper smiled without humor. "That's what I thought. All ships, prepare for engagement. Remember your training. Remember Reynolds. And remember, we're the good guys. Act like it." The battle for Croval Prime's approaches was about to begin, but on the surface of a dozen Corvallian worlds, something unexpected was happening. Citizens were protesting, demanding their government surrender Thrakus, demanding an end to the war. The broadcast from Earth, showing Reynolds over and over, had done their job. People were starting to ask questions. Why did Thrakus kill an unarmed diplomat? Why were they protecting him? Why were millions being forced to choose between fleeing their homes or dying for his pride? The Empire was cracking, not from human weapons, but from human patience. They'd made the Corvallian people see exactly what their leaders had done and what it was costing them. 3 months had passed since Admiral Harper's campaign began. The Corvallian Empire was collapsing faster than anyone expected. They'd lost 40% of their military capability. Their economy was in freefall. Civilian populations were fleeing by the millions. But High Commander Thrakus refused to surrender. He sat in his command center on the Corvallian homeworld, surrounded by what remained of his war council, and watched his empire crumble. "The humans have gone too far," he growled. "They humiliate us, make us look weak in front of the entire galaxy." His advisors tried to reason with him. Some suggested negotiating. Others proposed turning Thrakus over to Earth in exchange for peace. He rejected every suggestion with rage. "Corvallians do not bow to primitives. If they want war, we will show them what real war looks like." He authorized something that would change everything. A special operations team, his most elite soldiers, were sent on a secret mission to the human colony world of New Austin. New Austin was home to 2 million people. It was a peaceful agricultural world, known for its beautiful valleys and friendly communities. They had minimal defenses because they'd never needed them. Until now, the Corvallian strike team infiltrated the planet's capital city, New Dallas. They moved through the underground transit system, carrying sealed containers. By the time local security detected them, it was too late. They released a biological weapon in the main city center during rush hour. The pathogen was airborne, fast-acting, and designed specifically to target human biology. Lieutenant Brian Wells, Reynolds' former assistant who joined the military, was stationed at the Earth Defense Monitoring Station when the distress calls started coming in. "Sir, we're getting emergency transmissions from New Austin. Some kind of biological attack. Hospitals are overwhelmed. People are..." His voice broke. "Thousands are dying." The weapon was contained after 6 hours through the heroic efforts of New Austin's medical teams and emergency responders. But by then, 50,000 people were dead. Men, women, children. Families wiped out. Entire neighborhood silent. Admiral Harper was in her ready room when she got the news. She sat down heavily, her hands shaking. For 3 months, she'd been careful, methodical, only military targets, always giving civilians a chance to escape. And now this. Her communication console chimed. General Cross's face appeared. He looked older than he had 3 months ago, worn down by the weight of what they'd been doing. "You've heard?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Earth High Command is issuing new orders. The 1st, 2nd, and 4 fleets are being redirected to your position. You'll have operational command of all forces." Harper did the math in her head. "That's 800 ships, sir." "Yes, and your new target is the Corvallian homeworld." She understood what he was saying, what he wasn't saying. Sir, there are billions of civilians on that planet. We're not targeting civilians, Admiral. We're targeting the government that authorized this attack. Thrakis needs to answer for what he's done. And if his people won't hand him over, we'll take him ourselves. Over the next 72 hours, the largest human fleet ever assembled converged on Kroval Prime. 800 warships from across Earth's territory, all moving toward the Krovalian homeworld with grim purpose. The Krovalian military scrambled to defend their home, but their forces were scattered, depleted from months of fighting. They managed to assemble maybe 200 ships between the human fleet and their world. It wasn't enough, not even close. But Harper didn't engage them. Instead, her fleet took a position surrounding the entire planet. A complete blockade. Nothing in, nothing out. Then General Cross broadcast directly to every screen, every communication device on Kroval Prime. His message was translated into Krovalian and played simultaneously across the entire planet. People of Kroval Prime, this is General Owen Cross of Earth. 3 months ago, High Commander Thrakis murdered our ambassador in cold blood during a peaceful council session. Today, he authorized a biological weapon attack on a civilian population that killed 50,000 innocent people, including children. Footage played showing the attack on New Austin. Bodies in the streets. Parents crying over their kids. Medical workers overwhelmed and helpless. We could end your world in minutes, Cross continued, his voice hard. We have the firepower in orbit right now to turn your planet into a wasteland. But we won't, because we're not Thrakis. We don't murder civilians. He paused, letting that sink in. You have one chance. Surrender High Commander Thrakis to us within 24 hours. If you do, we will withdraw and begin peace negotiations. If you don't, we will classify your entire military command structure as war criminals. Every officer, every official who enabled his actions. And we will hunt each one of you across the galaxy for the rest of your lives. There will be no place you can hide. No species that will shelter you. The broadcast ended with a countdown timer. 24 hours. On the surface, chaos erupted. The Krovalian government convened an emergency session. Thrakis sat at the head of the table, demanding they refuse Earth's ultimatum. We fight to the last, he roared. Krovalian honor demands it. But his war council was looking at the fleet in orbit, looking at the footage from New Austin, looking at 3 months of destroyed military installations and millions of their people in refugee camps. What honor? One of them finally asked. You killed an unarmed diplomat. Then you murdered 50,000 civilians. Where's the honor in that? Thrakis realized then that his own government was turning on him. His people, who'd followed him for years, were finally seeing what he'd done, what he'd cost them. He left the meeting and ran. Within hours, Thrakis was aboard a small stealth ship, trying to slip past a human blockade. The ship was fast, designed to avoid detection. It almost worked. Captain Megan Taylor commanded the scout ship Valkyrie, positioned in a quiet sector of the blockade. Her sensors picked up a faint signature, something trying very hard not to be seen. Got something, her tactical officer reported. Could be nothing, could be a glitch. Megan studied the readings. Then she smiled coldly. That's not a glitch. That's our target. Disable that ship. I want it intact. The Valkyrie's precision weapons fired, knocking out the stealth ship's engines without destroying it. The vessel tumbled through space, powerless. Prepare a boarding team, Megan ordered, and tell them to suit up. We're going to bring in a war criminal. Captain Megan Taylor led her boarding team to the airlock of Thrakis' disabled ship. She'd been in the council chamber that day, standing in the back as part of Reynolds' security detail. She'd watched the ambassador fall, watched him die, and hadn't been fast enough to stop it. Now she had her chance to make it right. They found Thrakis in the ship's command center, desperately trying to delete data from the computer systems. When he saw the humans in their combat armor, he reached for his sidearm. Don't, Megan said quietly, her weapon already trained on him. I'd love an excuse, but the ambassador wouldn't want that. Thrakis froze. You're arresting me? High Commander Thrakis, You're under arrest for the murder of Ambassador David Reynolds and 50,000 civilians of New Austin Colony. You're also charged with war crimes and violations of diplomatic law. She stepped closer. You have the right to remain silent. Not that it'll help. Corvellians don't recognize human law. Thrakis spat. Megan smiled without warmth. You don't have to recognize it. You just have to live with the consequences. They brought him back to the Valkyrie in restraints. The moment his capture was confirmed, Admiral Harper broadcast to the Corvellian homeworld. We have Thrakis. The blockade is lifted. Begin peace negotiations. The relief on Kroval Prime was immediate. People poured into the streets, not celebrating, but grateful it was over. Their empire was broken, their military shattered, but at least the dying would stop. 3 weeks later, Earth held the trial. They could have done it quietly in some closed military court. Instead, they broadcast it across the entire galaxy. Every species could watch. Every citizen could see justice being done. The trial was held in Geneva, in the same hall where humanity had once tried its own war criminals centuries ago. Thrakis sat in the defendant's chair, surrounded by guards, facing a panel of judges from Earth's highest courts. The prosecution was led by Attorney General Patricia Moore. She was methodical, presenting every piece of evidence with calm precision. Footage of Reynolds' murder, testimony from witnesses, communication logs showing Thrakis had ordered the attack on New Austin personally. Brian Wells testified. He stood in the witness box, hands shaking, and described watching his friend and mentor die. Reynolds believed people could change, Brian said, his voice breaking. He thought that if he just explained things clearly enough, if he showed enough patience, even the most hostile person could be reasoned with. He died still believing that. Survivors from New Austin testified. Parents who'd lost children. Medical workers who'd watched helplessly as thousands died. A 10-year-old girl named Katie, whose entire family was gone. Thrakis' defense attorney tried to argue military necessity. Cultural differences. The fog of war. But the evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The verdict came back in less than an hour. Guilty on all counts. The chief judge, an elderly woman named Victoria Cross, who'd spent 40 years on the bench, looked at Thrakis with cold eyes. You murdered an unarmed diplomat who was trying to prevent conflict. Then you authorized a biological weapon attack on civilians. You violated every law of civilized conduct. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. This court sentences you to permanent exile on Titan Station, a maximum security facility on the moon of Saturn. You will spend the rest of your natural life there, alone, with nothing but the knowledge that your pride destroyed your empire and killed thousands of innocent people. Some people thought it was too lenient. Others thought it was worse than execution for a warrior like Thrakis, spending decades in a cell, knowing he'd lost everything, watching his empire become a cautionary tale. The Corvellian Empire formally surrendered the next day. Their government was restructured with council oversight. Their military was reduced to defensive forces only. They paid reparations to New Austin survivors, money that would help rebuild, but could never replace what was lost. The galaxy had watched everything. Every species saw what happened when someone killed Earth's diplomats. They saw human patience, human restraint, but also human determination. Admiral Harper stood before the Galactic Council to accept the formal surrender documents. She wore her dress uniform, medals from the campaign gleaming on her chest. Ambassador Reynolds believed in peace, she told the assembled representatives. He died trying to build bridges between species. We honored his memory the only way we knew how, by making sure no one ever kills another human diplomat and walks away unpunished. She looked at each delegate in turn. We didn't want this war, but we finished it. Remember that. General Cross became Earth's permanent council representative, though he kept his military rank. His first proposal was new diplomatic protection laws, stronger penalties for attacks on diplomats, mandatory arbitration before conflicts, universal recognition of diplomatic immunity. Every species signed. The vote was unanimous. Nobody wanted to risk what the Corvellians had faced. On Earth, they built a monument in Geneva where the trial had been held. It showed Reynolds standing with his hand extended in friendship, his expression peaceful despite everything. The inscription was simple but powerful. Ambassador David Reynolds. He sought peace. We ensured his sacrifice meant something. Never again will Earth's voice be silenced. Years passed. The Crovalian Empire rebuilt slowly, their new government working hard to make amends. Some species forgave them quickly. Others took time. But the galaxy had changed. Every human diplomatic vessel, from the smallest embassy ship to the largest ambassadorial cruiser, carried Reynolds's name somewhere on its hull. A reminder, a promise. Captain Megan Taylor eventually became an admiral herself. On her first day in her new position, she visited Reynolds's monument and stood in silence for a long time. "We kept the promise, sir," she whispered. "Nobody touches our diplomats. Not anymore." The galaxy learned to respect human representatives, not because they feared what humanity would do, but because they'd seen what humanity could do when pushed too far. Ambassador David Reynolds had been a peacemaker in life, patient and kind to the end. In death, he became something more, the reason the galaxy chose peace over violence, the reason diplomats everywhere could do their jobs without fear. His legacy wasn't the war that followed his death. It was the peace that war created, a peace built on the simple understanding that some lines should never be crossed, and if you cross them anyway, humanity would make sure you regretted it for the rest of your life. The end.